Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers, along here at Campaign for America with Tricia Flanagan. Thank you for joining us tonight on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. Folks, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. A lot that we are going to share with you tonight will not be shared with you from the mainstream media, but indeed it's something that is very important for you to know with regard to the state of affairs of our country and where we're headed with the president's lawsuits. Trish, first of all, I've got to tell you, I've been on the air almost every day, 2-3 times a day, on TV networks that are in Europe and the Mideast. And you would think that they would be focused on the election as a priority, but they're not. What they're now concerned about is the withdrawing of U.S. troops from Afghanistan and Iraq. The Democrats have advanced a scenario along with Joe Biden and the mainstream media, that the president is becoming unhinged and that he is looking to start a war with Iran. So I did get some social media messages about this, so I would like to share with people exactly what is going on and why the president of the United States is withdrawing troops from Iraq and Afghanistan. It's important to people to know this. What I'm sharing with you on this broadcast, I shared with all of those people watching in Europe and in the South Pacific and in Asia and around the world. So this is nothing that I just decided to share with you tonight. This is what I have been saying for days that the mainstream media in this country doesn't particularly care about. Well, to begin with, folks, I tweeted this out earlier. It kind of capsulizes what I've been saying. U.S. allies and others are criticizing President Trump for withdrawing some U.S. forces from Afghanistan and Iraq. If the allies are so concerned, they should increase the number of their own troops. And we support President Trump to end endless wars. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Forever, NATO, our allies, have been crying the blues over the fact that President Trump, since he took office, began to get the process going to withdraw American troops from some of these countries that we should simply not be in. Afghanistan has been the longest war that we have been engaged in. We probably are looking at more U.S. deaths in that war than any other war, other than Vietnam. It may have exceeded that, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that we've been there for many, many years, and we have gained nothing. Now, the fact that I said that some people on the air in opposition to the president said, well, we have gained something. We have been able to stop ISIS, and we have been able to stop terrorism from spreading. Well, I've got news for them. The fact of the matter is that ground troops in Afghanistan or Iraq are not stopping ISIS from attacking here. What is stopping ISIS from attacking here are intelligence agencies, the FBI, the CIA, national security agencies. And Tricia, my point was this: without U.S. ground troops there, U.S. forces will not be killed. No more U.S. blood will be shed on that soil. And the president made it clear that if anybody decided to make a move against our national interest in that region, we have mighty, mighty rapid deployment forces, and we have the air power and the weapons to take them out in minutes. There is the reason why we are being pulled out of the region. We simply, Tricia, don't belong there. We're not policemen of the world. We've got to get out.
Well, very well said. And I'd love to underscore a couple of things there. It's that, after 19 years, we are now an occupying force in Afghanistan. Look, we've been warned since George Washington that foreign entanglements should not be a major focus of our American military. Our might has been augmented, just like you said, because President Trump decided to put not just the energy behind it, but the budgetary might behind that as well. And I think there is that false conflation that you mentioned, that just because we're in Afghanistan and Iraq, that means that we've been able to stave off terrorism of ISIS. Nothing could be further from the truth. And in fact, I would argue that if we pull those forces back and stop them from being an occupying force, we can now be at the ready to be a strike force whenever and wherever we're needed worldwide, when we deploy them necessarily if the terrorism issue arises. We are done Iran being the world's police force. It's not monetarily efficient, it's not militarily efficient, and it deploys our forces erroneously where we need to deploy them strategically and smartly. And that's what President Trump is doing.
So these amateurs that are working off of talking points from the Democrat National Socialist Committee challenged me on the fact that, well, Lieutenant Rogers, if we pull out of Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, that region, we're opening the door for Vladimir Putin's Russian army to come in. Well, you know what? Where in the world have these people been? The Russians have been there. We, the United States of America, were able to keep the Russians out of the Mideast for 50 years. Not one Russian tank, not one Russian soldier, not one Russian aircraft went in, around, under, or over Syria until Barack Obama opened up the door for them. He opened up the door when Vladimir Putin launched an attack in that region and did nothing, absolutely nothing. So there was the signal that allowed Russian troops to come in, and they are not going anywhere. Unless the United States wants to get into a ground war with Russia, they are not going anywhere. And by the way, it's not that we can't beat them. We probably could, but at the cost, it would be overwhelmingly expensive in treasure, in life, in anything that we hold precious. Because the Russian army is not Saddam Hussein's army. They are tough, they are strong, and they will fight to the death. So the door is open, and they're going to be there perhaps forever. Which leads me, Tricia, to the one country that is pretty, in my estimation, probably nervous over what's going on, and a Biden administration coming in and going to appease some of the enemies of the United States and Israel, but at the same time, do something very dangerous, and that is to poke a knife in the eye of Vladimir Putin. You don't do that to the Russian bear. You just don't do that.
Well, exactly. And, that is strategically unsound. And I say that because when we look at the strategic geopolitical forces that are lining up, we've got Vladimir Putin, who is already engaging Iran. And let's not forget that there was no better friend to the Iranian regime than the Biden administration when they sent them pallets of cash that emboldened terrorism. Iran is the #1 sponsor of terrorism worldwide. And if you combine that with how Vladimir is already courting Iran, and then you add North Korea into the mix and China in the background, you've got a potential powder keg. And Biden is walking into that storm with his guns ablazing, and he's not understanding that, again, I'll go back to my comment that we need to be a strike force, and we have to pull back like a tsunami where the tide recedes and then comes back and wipes out the shore. We have to be smart. We have to be strategic. That's not what Biden's doing at all.
And how do we deploy a strike force when Biden's already talking about cutting the defense budget? You see, President Trump followed up on President Reagan's idea of peace through strength. Look at the Russians, the Chinese, anybody around the world fears the United States of America. We have the largest Navy now on the face of the earth, the largest and strongest military weapons on the face of the earth. That's all going away. And when you don't have the weapons you need and you don't have the strength to back up your words, you're going to find out real quick that you're going to be at a great disadvantage in the event that some of those countries decide to use their weapons against us. And let me add this, Tricia, and I'm going to ask you to weigh in. You're a mother, so I'm going to ask you to speak from the perspective of a mother. President Trump and presidents before him, primarily the Republican presidents, have kept us out of wars. Well, unfortunately, if Joe Biden goes down the pathway that he is planning to go down, your children and grandchildren, believe me, folks, mark this down, the time and date I'm telling you this, within the next 5, maybe 6 years, we'll be engaged in a major war somewhere on the face of this earth. Rather chilling, isn't it?
Well, it is. And especially as a mother, I look at that through the lens of look at how much blood has been spilled on foreign shores by these foreign entanglements. We don't need to do that. Now, look, I come from a military family. You know that. I believe our viewers know that. I'm the daughter of a rear admiral, and my family has never even blinked for a moment to defend our country. But does that mean that I, as a mother with a mother's heart, want to see that fall on my children? Of course not. We're ready if we have to be. And thank goodness that President Trump invested $750 billion into our depleted military. But we did that so we can lead by strength, not by sending troops into entanglements that we don't need to be in. And as a mother, it frightens me beyond what I can put into words today.
Well, here's something else that's frightening to think about. What about this? If we do end up in a major war, I'm talking about a huge major war with China or with Russia, will this generation stand up and fight like they fought in World War II, like they fought in Vietnam? Will they actually stand up and fight? I want to believe and I hope that there is a silent majority of Generation X, they call them, who will stand up and fight. We got a lot of great young men and women in uniform now who are serving this country. We don't see them out on the streets marching and burning our flag. They're fighting to keep this country safe and strong. I say that, folks, because we need to have fundamental changes in the way we do things in our country, especially with regard to education. When young people know about the history of America and the blood that has been spilled for their liberty, they'll stand up and they'll fight. But Tricia, we don't seem to have that anymore here. So as we move forward, state by state, city by city, and yes, the White House, round two, we need to take our country back, but we need to start working now to do that.
Well, we do. And when we look at the riots, and let's face it, they weren't peaceful protests. The Antifa assemblies were riots, and they were predominantly from the millennial and the Gen Z generations. And I wish also as a parent that those young folks would take their energy and put it to the cause of defending our liberty if we have to. They should be training to defend us, not tearing us down. This generation that we saw in those news reports, they're fighting with umbrellas and Molotov cocktails. That is not what's going to be necessary for the strategic plane that we're going to be operating on in this new military theater. This is something that I would urge every parent to say to their children, get ready, and hopefully we never have to use or deploy that mighty military force.
And there is another war on another front, and we are engaged in it right now. It's in every city, every county, every state across America. The breaking news today was rather chilling. Oregon Democrat Socialist Governor Brown has threatened to jail and fine citizens violating her Thanksgiving rules. Police will be called to enter homes and arrest family members at gatherings not in compliance with her rules. Folks, I've got to tell you, Tricia, in the United States of America, I never thought that I would believe, or I never believed that I would see in newspapers and on headlines, governors, totalitarian governors taking complete control, bringing people to their knees and threatening to arrest American citizens, drag them out of their houses on Thanksgiving in the event that they're violating rules and regulations. And folks, this isn't exaggerating. You Google this, you find out what's going on. Step by step by step, we are surrendering our rights to these tyrants. Something's got to be done, and we're going to be sharing with you as we move along this week and next week exactly what will be done. But Tricia, this has got to be chilling. And let me add one more thing before you respond. And I'm going to address the Democrats who are watching this. They're coming for you. They're not just coming for us. They are coming for you. And they're coming for you because they know, the socialists and the communists know that there are Democrats who are conservatives. There are Democrats who love this country. And those of you who supported them, who supported the socialists, believe me, you have a target on your back like we have a target on our back. You know what that target is? It's right here. Here's the target. This is the target they hate. They are coming for you. Tricia?
Yeah, they don't want freedom. They want complete and utter control. And you can add to Governor Brown's dictum, you can add Governor Newsom in California, who is saying that there can be no singing, no shouting. What are we supposed to do now? Keep our masks on and take them off between bites? Are we not supposed to talk to relatives that are at our dinner table? And now in Pennsylvania, there is a mandate that even in your own home, you are required to wear a mask. I challenge anyone who is listening to this broadcast, who is even questioning whether or not there is a socialist agenda in this country. I challenge you to listen to those stories. And like you said, Steve, Google them, look at them in their entirety, and decide for yourself if this is not a socialist, totalitarian regime, and you will obey their orders or you will suffer the consequences. They already have lists, and they are coming for everyone that doesn't agree with them and obey.
Remember, police in this country need warrants. You need to commit a crime. Make sure that you remember what your rights are. But I'll tell you right now, hell will freeze over before I allow any police officer or anyone to come into my house. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a great Thanksgiving, and I hope all Americans do. And we're going to have a great Christmas. So the Democrats, socialists, and communists who are going down this road, they better watch out. They better be careful, because, Tricia, I've got to tell you, we do not and will never, ever support violent acts. Never. But what they're doing, Tricia, there is a boiling point that is beginning to rise to a level that I'm hearing a lot of scary things going on. And I could imagine the colonists in 1776 sat back for a long time. They took a lot of suffering and grief from the British Empire. And finally, they said, enough is enough. So this should be putting these tyrants on notice. It's not us who's advocating violence. It's not President Trump. None of us are doing that. In fact, we're trying to lower the temperatures, asking people to use their heads just to calm down. But you know, when you get constantly stuck with a knife and then they twist that knife and twist it, we've got to rise up and we've got to do what must be done to protect our freedoms. Minus violence, minus that, which leads me to this, Tricia. And this is where now my pot starts to boil. The people we are depending on to lower the temperatures, to take a very strong stand like we are the Republicans we elected to office. Where are they? I mean, you hear about this going on in Oregon. Now, Phil Murphy, all right, no doubt he's going to be right behind it. He's a tyrant. I've never seen a tyrant like this guy. He's about to crucify every small business owner in the state of New Jersey. New York, they've already closed the public schools. These kids are going to be way behind the rest of the world in education. But getting back to a Phil Murphy in New Jersey, all these guys running for office. Look, when I talked about the New Jersey GOP, and you know, you read the press report, and the New Jersey GOP mentioned all these wonderful things they did. They registered 200,000 more Republicans, on and on and on. We lost. We lost the election. Not one Republican, minus, I think, Van Drew down there in Cape May County. Not one. How do you explain that? You call that a victory? And where are they now, Tricia? The ones who lost, you know, as far as I'm concerned, they lost an election. But now they're running, they're hiding. They're in a fetal position somewhere with a white flag. Got to stand up for this country, for goodness sakes.
I have to tell you, you and I are the only ones that are really speaking out. I scour the headlines. I look at all of the other blogs and talk shows, and I don't hear a peep. And this is the time when we have to fortify our troops, not cower in the corner, as you just said. And you're right. I mean, look at David Richter. He lost in the 3rd district. We look at Rick Mehta. He lost the Senate seat. The only one that won was Van Drew. Frank Pallotta lost in CD5. And we have to call out the emperor when they're wearing no clothes. I mean, Doug Steinhardt, he's a nice family guy, as you said last night. But the reality is that, yes, we did register more Republicans relative to what we had in the past. But in Doug Steinhardt's own county, in Warren County, the Democrats outpaced him in registering more voters, almost 2-1. So, they're fighting with talking points and losing talking points at that. It's time to rise up. We have to tell the truth, and we have to look the enemy square in the eye and say no more. We have to draw the line. The time is now.
And yet in the state of Florida, they outpaced the number of Democrats that were registered. In the state of Florida, they outpaced that, folks. because they had a leader down there, and I was there with my wife. We were there ourselves. We witnessed the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, and also I've mentioned Joe Albergo so many times. They're out on the streets. They were working with the people, and President Trump won the state of Florida. Republicans won congressional seats in Florida. So it can be done. It's all about leadership. And Tricia, you're right. And this is no bravado, but it seems that we are the only ones out there who are making a lot of noise over this, but we're not alone. And we know that. We've got thousands and thousands of people in this country, and particularly in this state, who are with us and who are supporting what we're doing. But somebody did speak out, and it was a Democrat. And after this Democrat spoke out, I waited and waited and waited for some Republican to push back on this. So I tweeted this out, and it did draw some attention. Communism unleashed in New Jersey again. Representative Bill Pascarell, Democrat Patterson, urged for Donald Trump and members of his White House to face criminal probes for alleged wrongdoing while in office. Pascarell's Soviet-style statement should alarm everyone, including Democrats. Stay tuned. Well, here's what I want you to stay tuned for, Democrats. You know, when you start talking about criminal probes against the president of the United States and his team. And Tricia, let me add what was added in there, but you only get 140 characters on Twitter, were people like you and me, because he went on to say, from what I read, could be wrong, but I don't think I am, that those who supported the president and his policies should be charged. They should be charged. There should be criminal probes and charged. For what? For what? Supporting the individual that we believed in? There's no crimes that were committed here. There's no foundation like there was with Hillary Clinton, where millions of dollars went into her coffers. There's no criminal probe regarding Russia and Ukraine involving a guy named Hunter. I didn't hear anything like that coming out of Bill Pascarell's big fat mouth. But the fact of the matter is that he went down that road. And in the United States of America, we now have a congressman, a sitting congressman, recommending that his political enemies, doesn't it sound like the Soviet Union and like communist China, that his political enemies be taken to task? And by the way, he also talked about the abuse, quote, the abuse, unquote, of President Trump with regard to pardons. Why? Because he pardoned Roger Stone? I mean, give me a break, Tricia. These guys, they have lost their minds.
They really have. And President Trump has pardoned fewer than Obama. And I think he ranks amongst one of the lowest in terms of pardons in our presidential history. You know, this is just an intimidation factor from the left. And I'll add to that, you know, there was recently a lawsuit filed against some of the lawyers who are intimidating Trump's defense in a number of counties as he takes on this election fraud issue. There are actual lawyers from pretty reputable law firms that are now intimidating the lawyers on President Trump's staff. This has become a banana republic. And, you know, where is it going to end? You know, they will not stop there. This is the first pass. And like we mentioned already, that there are lists being put together. It's more of the rules for thee, but not for me if you're a Democrat. They get a pass and everyone else gets a lawsuit served to them. This is politics at its worst, and it's the swamp at its deepest.
Now, Tricia just mentioned a couple of words, intimidation, and there's bullying. All of this is going on. Don't be intimidated. These people are worthless. They're nothing. They think that they've got a lot of power. They don't have any power except the power we allow them to have. If we show fear, if we show that we're intimidated, then they win. We need to stand up with great strength, folks. I'm talking about great strength. And I've got to tell you, I feel so confident and so secure that we are going to be able to defeat these individuals, these communists and these socialists, just like Ronald Reagan said, and just like President Trump has said. Look, if President Trump loses this war, or let's put it this way, if he loses the battle right now, he hasn't lost the war because he's not going anywhere. And the Republicans better wake up. I'm talking about the establishment, because if President Donald Trump goes nowhere, we're going nowhere. We're going to continue to remember that it is he who hasn't forgotten us, the forgotten Americans. Now they want to take us and they want to take him and just throw 75 million people aside with their leader. Yes, he is a leader. He's a leader of goodness. He's a leader of righteousness. He is, Tricia, the only president other than Reagan and maybe Bush a couple times who had no problem in using the words God and country and prayer in the same sentence.
And that's critically important. For the first time in decades, Christians have had a voice. Look at the speeches that President Trump has given on National Prayer Day. Look at the fact that President Trump has been the first president in United States history to attend the Right to Life March. This is a president who has stood for our values, for our Constitution. It's time now that we stand with him. If we don't, we are the last line of defense. Of those 73 million voters that stood with Trump at the voting polls, my question is rhetorical. How many will stand with us now to make sure that we bolster him up when he needs it at this moment, and that we take the banner forward, no matter what the outcome, no matter what the cost? We have to be the ones who bring it forward. It's time.
And you use the word defend. Folks, I'm going to show you something. See this here? There's 50 stars. We defend the 50 stars plus one. What is the plus one? The Star of David, Israel. This is why America has been blessed, because we have stood by Israel. Now, there are those who will say, well, here you go again, biblical this, biblical that. Yes. That's the way it is with me, folks. And I know that's the way with Tricia. That's the way with my wife. That's the way with all of us who are working so hard in Campaign for America. I want to make something very, very clear to those living in Jewish communities across the country, my Jewish friends, neighbors. You who have backed and stood with the president, you did the right thing, because you defended this country and you defended Israel by your votes and support. And you can bet that we will continue to then defend you. I know the president will, no matter where this road goes, but you could count on Campaign for America and the thousands and thousands of people that not only we're bringing together, but other patriotic groups like us. But now a word to the Jewish people who voted for Biden, the Jewish people who voted for a progressive, socialist, communist agenda. I want you to remember the words that have been shouted out by your brethren, your Jewish brethren across the aisle. Never again. Never again. Remember those words, because I've got to tell you, what is chilling is that, as Tricia said, look at, they're coming for Christians and they're going to come for Jews. And you want to know why, folks? Because, history does repeat itself. When Rome began to fall, you know what those leaders did, what those emperors did? They went after the Christians first. There weren't many Jews in Rome at that time, but they went after the Christians. And then they went after the Jews, a Paul, a Mark, a Matthew, a Jesus. You see, the first attacks are on our religious beliefs, Christians, Jews, and now I'm sure Muslims and others who worship God Almighty. They're coming, folks. They're coming. And the only way we stop them is not with bullets and guns. We stop them with our votes, with the power God has given us to exercise our freedoms and liberties in this country. But Tricia, as you said, we've got to organize. We are organizing here in Campaign for America. And maybe you could expound upon a little about what we've done here and how we're growing and growing and growing, even across this country.
Oh, absolutely. We're growing by leaps and bounds. In just 1 week, we have almost every delegate position filled, and we're expanding out into Virginia. We have Florida representation. This is an initiative that will go across the country, and we will stand side by side with everyone in every state to make sure that not only will our votes be heard, but that our voices be heard. You have a God-given gift in your voice. Elevate it for the cause and join with ours, because when we put our voices and our votes and our might and our strength together, that's when we're going to fully accomplish this agenda. We're just out of the gate. The best truly is yet to come when we look at all the policy initiatives we have to put forward. This is, as you say, Steve, this is our time.
And so I also heard today on the air, I tell you, these people are really amateurs, folks, that the Biden administration and the socialists are putting on not only national, but international television. They began the attack. Well, President Trump is wasting our time. He's using everything he's doing to create a war with Iran. And this idea of fraud, not one shred of evidence. Where is the evidence? Not one shred of evidence with regard to fraud, except they were wrong again. Because, folks, I tweeted this out earlier, and I tweeted it out for their benefit, to the Democrat socialists crying that President Trump and those of us who support the president are making statements of fraud. Well, folks, it's not true. What they're saying is not true. Because 2 Los Angeles men today have been charged with voter fraud after attempting to submit, now listen to this, 8,000, not 800, not 80, 8,000 ballot applications for non-existent or dead voters. Now, Tricia, that to me is evidence of fraud now in one city. And you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist and all that, but look at, when you've got 2 people responsible for fraudulent applications numbering 8,000, well, I asked this question to the Democrats out there, and I did it on Twitter. So what do you have to say now? What do you have to say after calling us liars, after telling the world that we are advancing a false agenda just to disrupt the transition of power? What do you have to say to that? Well, Twitter went silent.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, because Democrats are quickly becoming the party of the election fraud deniers. When you add to those 8,000 ballots that were deemed fraudulent in California, you can add to the fact that there's already a criminal referral to the Attorney General by the Nevada GOP. There are pockets of counties that are coming up again and again with not just missing ballots, but ballots that have been flipped over. We saw that a 3rd county in Georgia has found over 3,000 ballots that, surprise, surprise, were the majority voting for Trump, that were either not counted or disregarded. One was in a bucket of ballots. One was in a flash drive that was just suddenly found. Add to that the fact that in Michigan, I just broke this news on Twitter, that 3,000 counties are showing that their voter registers have voters that were cataloged that do not exist, by the tune of up to 350% over those that are registered. This is how the case builds. This is fraud, and the evidence is clear and present.
Now, folks, I've received multiple messages that you have been unable to share our videos, and now we have been blocked from sharing even some of the copies of tweets that I have put out. So the way around that is this. Please email your friends. Tell them to go to our Facebook page or our YouTube channel and look at these videos. Please tell them to do that, because as you know, and as you could attest to, you're getting information here that they're not going to get or receive. That's number one. Number two, every month we send a newsletter out, an intelligence report. And on those intelligence reports are the links to these broadcasts. So I'm urging you, email us, become part of what we're doing. We're not asking you for donations, and I'll repeat it over and over again. You spend money on your family, all right? The good Lord's going to give us the resources we need to do what we're doing. But in the meantime, ask your friends to email us. You email us. Now, tomorrow night at 7:30, all of our New Jersey delegates, we're going to have an invite-only Zoom meeting. And we're going to be talking about moving forward here in New Jersey. And we're going to have other Zoom meetings in the next month or so with whoever wants to be part of what we're doing. You can be part of that. All you've got to do is email us. If you email mail@rogersforamerica.us, mail@rogersforamerica.us, we'll certainly be able to get you the information you need to become part of the Campaign for America. And Tricia, from what I understand, they don't need the Zoom app. I think all they do is click the link and they'll go right to our Zoom meeting. I think that's the way it works. But if you have any, and if they have any problems, right, Trish, they can contact us and we'll help them out.
Oh, absolutely. If you have any trouble at all, you should be able to, just like you said, to click the link. It's only when you go into Zoom via your Zoom app, if you want to use that's necessary. My understanding is, just as you said, that once you receive the link, just touch on it. You can do that by a phone, by a smartphone, or by a computer, whether it be a laptop or a desktop. It should be no problem.
Now, folks, remember, we're preparing for the worst, and the worst is they're going to ban us. They're going to ban us. They're going to ban other conservatives. The socialists and the communists are on the march, as we gave evidence enough to you tonight. But we are preparing. We're working with other social media platforms, and we're going to try to build our own network. It's going to take a lot of time, but we're going to do it, because I've got to tell you, folks, you know, when I read about, again, you know, I love Ronald Reagan, boy, he was a great president. When he started to fund Radio Free Europe, after it was stripped of a lot of money, he found out later that after he left the presidency, think about this, he went to Europe, he was talking to people, and there were elderly people there that thanked him for what? Radio Free Europe. That was their only hope when they heard Radio Free Europe behind the Iron Curtain, behind the Berlin Wall. Unfortunately, today, there is no wall other than the wall that the Democrats, socialists, and communists are trying to construct across this country. So we're preparing, and we're going to be here, and we're going to fight, and fight, and we are going to win. It is as simple as that. Trish, I know you had a few things you wanted to share. Look, we've been going over a little time, but I think that's fine. You want to give it another 5 minutes, because I know you do a lot of research, and maybe you want to share a few of those things with the people.
Oh, sure. I mean, this is, I know that the data can get us glazing over, but the data and the details are where we are going to win this. And I'll just give you a flavor. It's a little bit in depth to go into, but I'll try to condense it into a couple of sound bites. So, if you're a statistician, any statisticians out there, please direct message me. Let me know that you feel my pain when I dig through and pour through all of these numbers. But there is something called Benfords Law, and it's a distribution curve that looks at data, and it's actually the curve that extolled the forensic investigations in the 2009 Iranian election that showed the fraud. And this is something, it's not a theory, it's a theorem. It's pretty well proven by probability. And what it shows, when we look at 3 counties, we can see in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, we can see in Milwaukee County in Wisconsin, and we can also see in Chicago. Those are the first ones that we've looked at. Benford's Law is holding that there's an unnatural distribution in the votes that were ascribed to Joe Biden versus the data that shows up under Trump's data election data curve. And that tells us one thing, that the math never lies. Math is the great arbiter, and we can see in visual detail that the way the numbers are coming out, Biden's numbers look fraudulent on their face. The math will make the argument, and that combined with what Sidney Powell and what Lynn Wood and what Rudy Giuliani are pulling together, that 3.1% of votes that looks like it's involved in this, that's going to be the win for President Trump. That's my opinion. We'll see over the next couple of weeks as this shakes out, but the math does not lie.
So the Democrats, socialists, and communists who are concerned about those of us out here stealing, those are your words, stealing the election, I've got news for you. You better start focusing on the people you elected to office stealing your liberty and stealing your freedom. That's it, folks. Tonight, I just want to thank you for joining us. Look, we're going to post our email when this video is posted, and as long as we're here, we're going to be able to share with you what is really going on around the country. But please email us. We want to stay connected if the inevitable happens. In relation to that, I want to thank you all for supporting us and for praying for us. So until 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night here at Campaign for America, thank you for joining us. God bless you. God bless America. God bless our president. And remember, the chief end of man is to do what? Is to love and glorify God.